The school system taught you how to solve for x,
how to memorize the periodic table,
and how to write an essay in 5 paragraphs.
but it never taught you how money actually works.
Here's what nobody told you. There's a completely different set of financial rules that wealthy people live by.
Rules that are never written in any textbook.
Never covered in any classroom.
And the gap between those who know these rules and those who don't? It's not small.
It's the difference between retiring at 55 and working until 72. Think about this. Right now, 80% of Americans are financially anxious. 29% carry more credit card debt than emergency savings as of early 2026.
And the average American saves just 4.5% of their income.
When experts say you need at least 10 to 15% just to retire with dignity.
Meanwhile, 80% of U.S. millionaires are self-made. No inheritance.
No trust fund.
No lucky break.
Just a different set of rules.
Rules the wealthy quietly pass down.
And that nobody puts in a curriculum.
So what do they know that most people don't?
That's exactly what this video is about.
We're breaking down the money management rules the rich actually follow.
Not theory, not motivation, but the real, documented habits backed by research. So that starting today, you can stop playing the game by rules that were never designed to help you win.
Stay with me, because rule number 1 alone will change the way you see every dollar you earn.
To understand the wealthy, we first have to address the illusion of literacy. Most of us believe we understand money because we know how to earn it and how to spend it. However, the data reveals a dangerous gap in perception. According to a 2025 study by the National Endowment for Financial Education, while 69% of millennials believed they were financially literate,
only 24% could actually demonstrate basic financial proficiency.
This overconfidence is a silent wealth killer. When you don't understand the mechanics of debt and interest, you pay an ignorance tax every single day. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta found that Americans with low financial literacy are late on their mortgage payments 25% of the time.
Compare that to those with high financial literacy who are late only 10% of the time.
Financial knowledge isn't just about getting rich. It is about the fundamental stability of your home and your family's future.
The first major rule the wealthy follow, and the one schools ignore, is the cultivation of an intellectual asset base.
While the average person views education as something that ends at graduation, the wealthy view it as a lifelong daily requirement. Tom Corley's Rich Habits research found that 88% of self-made millionaires read at least 30 minutes every day for self-improvement. They aren't reading fiction or entertainment. They are reading about history, psychology, and personal finance. They understand that your earning capacity is directly tied to your learning capacity. If you aren't upgrading your internal software through constant self-education, you are effectively depreciating in a rapidly changing economy. The wealthy realize that in the modern world, information is the only currency that doesn't lose value to inflation. But having information is useless without a framework to apply it. This leads us to the second pillar of elite money management, the documented architecture. Most people live their lives through a series of financial guesses. They guess they have enough for retirement. They guess they can afford that car payment. They guess they'll be fine next month. The data shows this is a recipe for mediocrity.
As of 2025, only 31% of U.S. households had a documented long-term financial plan.
Without a written plan, you aren't building a future. You are just surviving the present.
The wealthy don't hope to be rich.
They engineer it through rigorous tracking and documented goal setting. If you want to understand why the rich get richer while the rest of the country feels stuck, you have to look at how they perceive the value of a dollar over time. Most people see a dollar as a unit of consumption, something to be traded for a coffee, a gadget, or a meal. The wealthy see a dollar as a financial soldier that can be sent out to capture more soldiers.
This brings us to a concept that should be taught in every first-grade classroom, yet remains a mystery to many: the rule of compound interest. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission highlights a staggering reality. If you were to invest just $200 per month at a 10% average annual return, that modest sum grows to over $1.3 million in 40 years. Think about that. $200 a month, roughly what the average person spends on subscriptions and dining out, can make you a millionaire.
But here is the catch. It requires time and consistency, two things the school system never trains us for. Wealthy individuals leverage this math early. They don't wait until they have extra money to invest. They make investing their first expense. Contrast this with the current state of the American economy.
In January 2026, the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis reported that Americans saved only 4.5% of their disposable income. This is a critical failure.
Experts agree that 10 to 15% is the bare minimum required for a stable retirement. By saving only 4.5%, the average person is essentially choosing to work for the rest of their lives.
This brings us to rule number 3. Defense wins championships.
You can have a high income, but if your financial defense is weak, you will never build wealth.
The reality of 2026 is that 29% of Americans carry more credit card debt than they have in emergency savings.
This is a mathematical emergency. Credit card debt is often borrowed at 20% interest or higher, while your savings account might earn 4%. When you carry high-interest debt, you are effectively paying the bank to stay poor. The wealthy follow a positive spread rule. They refuse to pay interest on depreciating assets. If it loses value, like clothes, electronics, or cars,
They don't use debt to buy it.
They understand that debt is a tool to be used only for assets that grow in value or produce income.
This discipline is what separates the 80% who are financially anxious from the 20% who are financially free. The danger of ignoring this rule is documented in our current retirement crisis.
In 2025, 58% of American workers felt their retirement savings were behind where they should be.
This isn't just a feeling, it's a statistical reality.
When you start late or save too little, the math of compound interest begins to work against you. You lose the multiplication effect of your youth.
And you're forced into a subtraction effect in your old age, where you have to cut your lifestyle just to survive.
But there is a myth we need to dispel right now.
The idea that you have to be born into this to succeed. One of the most important studies on wealth in the U.S., conducted by Ramsey Solutions,
Found that 80% of millionaires are first-generation wealthy.
They didn't inherit a dime.
They didn't have a head start. What they had was a refusal to stay in the bottom economic quintile.
Statistics from the Pew Charitable Trusts show a harsh reality. 43% of Americans born in the bottom economic quintile remain there as adults.
Only 4% ever rise to the top.
Why? Because the system is designed to keep you in the consumer class.
To move into the investor class, you have to consciously reject the financial habits of everyone around you.
You have to stop doing what's normal. Because in America today, normal is being broke, stressed, and behind on retirement.
If the math is so simple, investing $200 a month to become a millionaire, why isn't everyone doing it?
The answer lies in a psychological barrier that schools and society have conditioned us to accept: the trap of immediate gratification.
We live in a culture that prioritizes the appearance of wealth over the accumulation of wealth.
The wealthy operate on a different timeline. While the average consumer is focused on the now, upgrading their phone, buying a new car on a 7-year loan, or financing a vacation,
the wealthy are focused on the decade.
They understand that every dollar spent today on a luxury is actually $10 stolen from their future self.
This is why first-generation millionaires are often invisible.
They don't drive the flashiest cars or live in the most expensive zip codes until after their assets can pay for those things.
This leads us to rule number 4:
the asset-income gap.
A paycheck is not wealth.
A paycheck is simply the raw material used to build wealth. If your lifestyle expands at the same rate as your salary, you are statistically likely to stay in the same economic quintile your entire life.
Remember the statistic from Pew Charitable Trusts. Only 4% of those born in the bottom economic quintile rise to the top.
To be part of that 4%, you must stop inflating your lifestyle. True money management means maintaining a forced gap between what you earn and what you spend.
The wealthy treat their savings and investments as a non-negotiable bill that must be paid first.
This is the pay yourself first principle, but taken to a formal, professional level.
When you save only 4.5%, the current American average, you are leaving yourself zero margin for error.
One medical emergency, one job loss, or one market downturn, and you become part of the 25% of people who are late on their mortgage payments. Furthermore, the wealthy have a different relationship with risk. Because 80% of millionaires are self-made. They understand that wealth isn't about avoiding risk,
but about managing it through literacy.
This is where the gap in education becomes most dangerous.
When you don't understand how to evaluate an investment, you view the stock market as gambling. But when you have high financial literacy, you view it as a historical wealth creation machine.
The school system taught us to be good employees,
to follow instructions and trade hours for dollars. It did not teach us how to be owners.
The wealthy understand that you will never reach true financial independence by only trading your time.
You must own pieces of businesses, real estate, or intellectual property. They prioritize passive scaling over active earning. Think about the 58% of workers who feel they are behind on retirement.
Most of them are waiting for a raise or a big break to fix their problems.
The wealthy know that a break never comes from the outside.
It comes from the internal discipline to manage the small amounts today.
They leverage the power of the documented plan we mentioned earlier to ensure that even in a down economy, their trajectory remains upward.
They don't check their portfolio once a year.
They check their progress against their 10-year goals every month.
They treat their personal finances like a business.
And in business, if your expenses are 95.5% of your revenue, which is what a 4.5% savings rate implies, your business is on the verge of bankruptcy.
The wealthy refuse to run their lives on such thin margins.
The most uncomfortable truth about money management is that the math is neutral. It doesn't care about your intentions, your excuses, or your degree. It only cares about your actions. We've seen the data, the low literacy rates, the staggering lack of planning.
And the 29% of Americans living on the edge with more debt than savings.
But we've also seen the blueprint of the self-made 80%.
The final rule the wealthy follow, which serves as the foundation for everything else, is the rule of radical accountability.
While the school system often evaluates you based on your ability to follow a predetermined path, the real world of wealth rewards those who create their own.
The wealthy don't blame the economy, the government, or their upbringing for their financial status. They recognize that while they cannot control the markets,
they can control their savings rate, their reading habits, and their documented plan.
If you are currently part of the 58% who feel behind on retirement,
the solution isn't a secret stock tip or a get-rich-quick scheme.
The solution is to close the gap between your perceived literacy and your actual habits. It starts with that 30 minutes of daily self-education.
It continues by increasing your savings rate from the national average of 4.5% to the expert-recommended 15%.
And it is sustained by the $200 a month discipline that leads to that 1.3 million finish line.
The difference between the 43% who stay stuck at the bottom and the 4% who rise to the top isn't just luck.
It's the willingness to do what is abnormal. It is abnormal to track every dollar. It is abnormal to say no to a new car when you can afford the monthly payment, but not the total cost.
It is abnormal to read a finance book instead of watching a sitcom.
But in a country where financial anxiety is the norm, being normal is the biggest risk of all.
You now have the data and the rules that the wealthy have used for generations to build first-generation fortunes. The question is, what will you do with them? Will you remain part of the 69% who believe they understand money but have no plan to show for it?
Or will you join the 31% who have documented their future?
The power of compound interest is a double-edged sword.
Every day you wait to implement these rules, the math gets harder.
Every day you delay, the cost of your ignorance tax goes up.
But the moment you decide to follow the rules of the wealthy, the rules schools never taught you, the trajectory of your life changes forever. It's time to stop solving for X and start solving for your freedom.
Build the plan. Read the books.
Invest the first dollar. Because the best time to start was 10 years ago, but the second best time is right now.